I think the interesting thing about the gas sector in America is that Americans are just waking up to the shale revolution. I mean, it's only 3 years, but they put $1 million, 1 million barrels a day onto the market out of nothing. And the United States has become the largest energy exporter in the world. Who'd have thought it? But now the politics of that are beginning to creep in with the American election. Both the Republicans under Rubio and under Hillary and the Democrats, this is going to be a big issue. And so this is just an awakening giant.
I think the U.S. is becoming increasingly integrated within the global market. You know, as somebody mentioned earlier today, just 5 years ago, 5 to 10 years ago, people were talking about the U.S. being integrated in the global market as an importer of natural gas. Now with the growth in production, people are talking about the U.S. Integrating more into the global market as an exporter of gas, particularly as liquefied natural gas that could come to Europe and Asia. So I think with that development, that's really having an effect on the global market, and even just the prospect of U.S. LNG exports is causing a shift within how contracts are formed somewhat even beyond the borders. At the moment, we're seeing continued high production levels, which is causing prices to remain relatively low. One of the key drivers in the U.S. gas markets, as is true around the world, is temperatures and weathers. So as we're coming out of a cold winter which drives prices in the energy market into more of a shoulder season, what we're having these very high production levels and more injections into storage, lower consumption values, which is dampening prices. So it always usually comes down to weather, unfortunately. EIA has a short-term outlook for U.S. gas markets. It covers through the end of 2016. We're seeing continued high levels of production, as well as continued relatively low natural gas prices. Looking further out to the year 2025, we're seeing continued growth in production, but we're increasing consumption, particularly in the industrial and electric power sector, as well as we're seeing greater volumes of natural gas exports from the United States. In the United States, a lot of the growth in production is coming from the Marcellus shale play in the Northeast. So when you're thinking of the United States regionally, if you mean interregional, it's largely what's going on in the Northeast. The developments are largely in support of pipeline projects to move all this production out of this pipeline-constrained area. And this is a real change within the U.S. because we're now reversing flows on pipelines, as well as we have flows coming from Marcellus to support LNG export projects. And it's just much different than what we had just going back several years.